What if I told you the prodigal son story isn't just about one lost son, but three broken hearts? This parable isn't a simple tale of rebellion and return. It's a journey of three souls: the younger son, lost in reckless sin; the older son, trapped in silent pride; and the father, carrying a love that waits, weeps, and restores. Each path reveals a struggle we all face, inviting us to see which road we're really on. This story isn't just ancient, it's personal. It begins with the youngest son, eager for more than what home could offer, longing for freedom, yet unaware of the price he would pay. If you're listening, let me warn you. This isn't a story about adventure, it's about a wrecking ball called regret. A whisper that grew louder until it broke me. I was the second son, living in a world of comfort. My father, wise and compassionate, loved me beyond reason. My older brother, the perfect one, always doing what was right. Me, I had my eyes set on distant horizons. Comfort felt like a cage. Home felt too small. I wanted more, or what I thought more meant. I stood before my father one day and said words that tasted like poison. "Give me my inheritance now." It wasn't a request, it was a betrayal. I might as well have said, "I can't wait for you to die." And yet, he didn't argue. He divided everything and gave me my share. His eyes held a sadness I didn't understand, yet I left without looking back. As I crossed the fields, I told myself I was free. Free from rules. Free from expectation. But freedom without wisdom? It's a mirage. I reached a distant city, and my money opened doors. It bought laughter, company, indulgence. I was the man of the hour. But wealth without purpose? It disappears like smoke. Soon, I wasn't free, I was empty. The money ran out. Friends vanished. Doors closed. I was left with silence and hunger. No one cared. No one knew I once had everything. Pride became my enemy, but desperation, it broke me. I found work feeding pigs. Pigs. An unclean, humiliating job. I stood in the mud, starving, longing for their scraps. That's when it hit me. The noise of the world had drowned out the truth, but now regret whispered. This is what you chose. I remembered my father's house. Even his servants had bread to spare. I traded everything for this. For nothing. I saw myself in the muddy reflection of a pig trough. I wasn't free. I was lost. A prisoner of my own foolishness. I decided to go back, not as a son, but as a beggar. I rehearsed my apology. "Father, I've sinned against heaven and you. I'm not worthy to be your son. Please, let me work as a servant." The journey home felt like eternity. Each step heavier with shame. I imagined the look in my father's eyes, the anger, the disappointment. But when I saw him, he was running to me. Running. His face wasn't filled with anger but tears. He embraced me, mud and all. I tried to speak, to confess, but he silenced me with love. Not words, love. He ordered a robe, a ring, sandals. He didn't just forgive me, he restored me. But don't mistake this for a happy ending without cost. My sin nearly destroyed me. I hurt the people I loved. I saw the darkness I was capable of. Some wounds take a lifetime to heal. My father's forgiveness didn't erase my choices, it revealed them. My brother's anger was justified. I didn't deserve anything. Yet my father's love redefined everything. He told my brother, "This son of mine was dead but is alive again, he was lost and is found." I was dead in pride. Lost in sin. But grace found me. So, if you're listening and thinking of chasing your version of freedom, remember, not all paths lead home. Regret starts as a whisper. Don't wait until it shouts. Then there's the father, a heart full of unconditional love, watching the horizon with a pain only a parent knows, ready to forgive the unforgivable. They call it the story of the prodigal son. But to me, it's the story of a father's broken heart, and the love that never let go. I have 2 sons. They couldn't be more different. My oldest, steady and loyal, carried the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He stayed close, worked hard, and rarely strayed from the path. My younger son, restless, always looking for more. Adventure called to him, and I feared it would lead him away. Then, one day, it happened. He came to me, eyes filled with a dangerous fire. "Father, give me my share of the inheritance now." His words cut deep. In our culture, it was the same as saying, "I wish you were dead." He didn't want me, he wanted what I could give him. I knew what would happen. I knew the path he would choose. But love isn't a prison. I divided my estate and gave him his share, watching him walk away, my heart shattering with every step. Days turned to weeks, then months. I heard rumors. Stories of his wild living, his recklessness. Each word was like a dagger. My mind painted pictures of him in places he didn't belong, surrounded by people who didn't care. Every night, I stood on the porch, staring down the road, hoping, praying, whispering his name into the wind. Then the famine hit. I knew what it meant. He'd lost everything. The inheritance he thought would make him free had become chains around his neck. His freedom had led him to slavery, to feeding pigs, the most humiliating job a Jewish boy could imagine. My son was starving, his soul as empty as his pockets. But grace works in the mud. In the emptiness. One day, I saw a figure in the distance. Thin, ragged, broken. My heart knew before my eyes did. It was him. My son. He was coming home. The world would have said he didn't deserve a welcome. That he needed to pay for his choices. But love doesn't keep score. I ran. An old man, pulling up his robe, running down the road. Dignity didn't matter, only my son did. I reached him, and he fell to his knees, eyes filled with shame. "Father, I've sinned against heaven and you. I'm not worthy to be called your son." He was right. He wasn't worthy. But my love wasn't about worth. I pulled him up, wrapped my arms around him. Mud and all. I called for the finest robe, a ring for his finger, shoes for his feet. My son wasn't a servant. He was family. And family comes home. We killed the fattened calf. We celebrated. My lost son was alive again. But not everyone understood. My older son, my faithful one, stayed outside. His words cut as deep as his brothers had. "I've served you all these years, never disobeyed, and you never threw a party for me. But this son of yours comes back after wasting everything, and you celebrate." I looked into his eyes and saw a different kind of lostness, resentment, pride. He'd stayed close, but his heart had wandered far. I said, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." But we had to celebrate. Your brother was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. Both of my sons were lost. One in rebellion, the other in self-righteousness. Both needed grace. One needed to come home from the far country, the other needed to come home from bitterness. This isn't just the story of one prodigal. It's the story of 2 sons. And a father who loved them both, who never stopped watching, never stopped waiting, never stopped hoping. If you see yourself in my younger son, know this: no sin is too great to come home from. If you see yourself in my older son, remember this: no obedience earns more love than what's already given. I stood on that road every day, waiting. Watching. Because that's what a father does. And if you're lost, know this: someone is watching. Someone is waiting. Come home. Finally, the older son, a picture of quiet obedience, yet beneath the surface, his heart simmered with pride and resentment, lost in ways he couldn't see. You've heard his story, the runaway who came back. You've heard about my father's love, his forgiveness. But what about me? The one who stayed. The one who obeyed. Let me tell you my story. I was the older son, the responsible one. The one who never wandered. I followed the rules, carried the load, and worked the land. Day after day. I was steady, dependable. Everyone said so. But deep down, I wondered if anyone really noticed. Or cared. Then came the day my brother, my younger brother, demanded his inheritance. It was more than a slap in the face to our father, it was a knife to the heart. He was saying, "You don't matter to me. Your love isn't enough." And my father, he just gave it to him. No argument, no punishment. Just grief in his eyes. I watched my brother leave, taking a third of everything with him. He didn't just take money, he took part of our family's honor. And I stayed behind to pick up the pieces. Day after day, I worked. I watched our father stare down the road, waiting for a son who wasn't coming back. I heard the whispers in town. The disgrace. It burned me. I swallowed the anger and kept going because someone had to. Then one evening, as I was coming in from the fields, I heard music. Laughter. Celebration. I didn't understand. I asked a servant what was going on, and his words were like poison. "Your brother has come home. Your father is throwing a feast. He's back. Back." Just like that. No consequences. No accountability. I felt a fire rise in me that I couldn't contain. I stayed outside, refusing to join the party. My father came out to me, and I let him have it. "All these years I've been slaving for you. I never disobeyed. And you never threw a feast for me. But this son of yours comes back after wasting everything, and you kill the fattened calf for him." I didn't say, "My brother." Not anymore. He was a stranger to me now. My father looked at me, and I saw the same sadness I'd seen the day my brother left. He said, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours." But we had to celebrate. Your brother was dead and is alive again, he was lost and is found. I wanted to argue, to fight, to demand justice. But his words hung in the air. They still do. I realized then, I have been home all along, but I was lost too. Lost in resentment. In self-righteousness. I thought I had earned my father's love, but I had missed the point. My brother's sin was obvious, but mine. It was hidden. Pride, bitterness, they had been growing in me like weeds. The feast inside wasn't just for him, it was an invitation for me too. To let go. To forgive. To see grace for what it is, undeserved, unearned, and freely given. I wish I could tell you I ran inside and embraced my brother. But the truth? I stood there, torn between justice and mercy. My father's words still echo, "Everything I have is yours." The choice was mine. It still is. Resentment or grace. Pride or love. So, if you see yourself in me, the one who stayed, the one who worked, be careful. Sometimes, the biggest sin is thinking you don't need grace at all. The prodigal son's story doesn't end with a feast. It ends with choices, unresolved, ongoing, and deeply personal. The younger son faces the consequences of his rebellion, the scars of his decisions forever shaping him. Yet, grace gives him a chance to rebuild. The older son must decide if he will step out of pride's shadow and into the light of forgiveness. His journey is unfinished, resentment lingers, an invitation unaccepted. And the father? His love remains the constant force, a reminder that true love doesn't erase sin's impact but transforms it. This story challenges us to ask, which road are we on? lost in rebellion, trapped in pride, or standing with open arms. The choices echo in us all, urging us to come home, to grace, to forgiveness, and to a love that waits. This story isn't just about the prodigal son, it's about the hearts we all carry. Whether we're lost, waiting, or holding on to pride, the grace of the Father is there for each of us. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to keep the message of forgiveness and redemption flowing. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let's walk this journey together.